this tie. This is what Solskjaer had to say after the game. It was a decision late on who was fit. It was no excuse. We have the players we have. We put a team out believing we could get a result. Can you give...
Well, they were the only ones.
Can you give United a bit of a pass today because of the sickness?
No. It's an ongoing theme. Just an ongoing theme. So I know they've got injuries. I know they've got illness. But they are, by their standards, they're a pretty abysmal side. That was a... You know... Forget the Rashford goal, which came about, by the way, when City were all laying it around. The City fans were laying. They must have had about 25 passes. Mm-hmm. Stupidly and sloppily gave it away. And Rashford finished well. But it was a 3-1 hiding. It was an exhibition. It was an embarrassment. If it had been 6 at half-time, there'd have been no complaints. Mm-hmm. We're repeating ourselves here. I'm repeating myself. It's a club... And I know you got the injuries, but the gulf between the two, it's a club who refuses to change quickly enough the structure, with a manager out his depth, with a playing staff that's not good enough, against one of the best in the country, and we saw that today.
Let's welcome Frank Leboeuf into the show, shall we? Frank, what did you make of this United performance, particularly in the first half?
I would say, without being too severe, that it was, as Craig said, embarrassing, but yeah, it was appalling. Because we see the difference of level between the two clubs. And I played against Manchester United, was maybe for sure the best club of the world, the biggest club of the world in terms of result, but a team with a structure, with the tactic, with the stamina. And I don't see anything of that. It must be very, very strange to those players that I play against to watch games like that. Because the club that I played against doesn't exist anymore for me. I see a very poor football club playing against a big club. And it's sad to say that when you talk about Manchester United.
Almost. Like, this is a team we grew up so impressed with. You'd played against them. I saw people tweeting that they felt sorry for Manchester United. When has that ever happened?
Unfortunately, we still hold Manchester United to that same standard. We can't help but compare this United to the United of what seems a very long time ago, but it's just that far that they've fallen. The hardest part of our job, day in, day out, week in, week out, is to find new ways and words to describe Manchester United.
I thought you were going to say to watch Manchester United.
Well, that's not watching them has become a whole lot easier. But how do you describe what you saw today without, again, going over what we said previously? And listen, I understand United have problems and they had to make changes, but then you look at City and what Pep Guardiola did, which I think is a better focus here, without an out-and-out striker, playing that front three, that drop deep, and Bernardo Silva getting in behind, and the width that they utilised. That's the biggest story here, and how good they were, and how there were times where Manchester United...
Well, I didn't know you were producing the show and telling us what the better story is.
Well, I'm just saying, I'm tired of talking about United. Right. I really am. And there were times, especially in that first half, where United didn't touch the ball for 5 or 6 minutes. And that's no exaggeration.
How can it be so different to the team that went to City and got that result to what we saw today? It's personnel, surely?
Well, personnel has something to do with it, but it's also... When you watch this game today, it's no exaggeration in saying that losing 3-1 was the best result that Manchester United could have hoped for under the circumstances. Because if you watch the first half, you're thinking, are these teams even in the same category? Are they even in the same league? And the answer is no. See, Manchester City, at their best, has a tremendous ceiling, one that not many teams in the world have. Whereas Manchester United, at their best, they're still limited. At their best, they still have issues creating opportunities, defending out of the midfield, defending 1v1 situations. That tackle, or attempt by a tackle by Phil Jones, and that third goal, what are we doing? And yet, this is a guy that has been part of Manchester United for years now. So it's not a guy that just walked off the street and say, you know what, hey, you get an opportunity to play. No, this is supposed to be a Premier League team and a Premier League player, and yet you watch Manchester United time and time again, and they give you the idea that they're getting better. They do just enough. They beat Spurs. They beat Manchester City. And you think, they're turning the corner. And it's not turning the corner. It's a cul-de-sac. It's you coming right back around. It's a roundabout. And you end up in the same place that you started again, which tells you that it's a team that is going nowhere anytime soon.
They could have put City could have put a few of the reserves out and thrown a few of their own kids in, and they would have given their first team a tougher game, right? In a training game, because that's what it was. It was a training game. As Ali mentioned, Phil Jones, what's he still doing at the club? Chris Smalling's gone out and loaned to Roma, doing all right, but he's not a Man United player. Fred. What does Fred do? Every time I see Fred, he's ushering people, substitutes off the field late on. Every time I see him, that's what he's doing. That's his main contribution when I see him play. Today it was pushing, was it Riyad Mahrez?
Mahrez.
Pushing Mahrez off. Nemanja Matic comes on, the legs have gone. Jesse Lingard, he's got a new agent. Oh, well done. What is he doing? What's he doing at the football club? All these people at Man United. Sir Alex Ferguson was in the stand. I know there was a few of the players. Mark Hughes, all these ex-guys were in the stand. Sir Alex Ferguson, who, the greatest manager in English, probably British football history, was sat in the stand, and he must be thinking, what the hell are all these guys still doing at that football club? Yeah. The reason Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's in charge, in my opinion, is because he's not strong enough and the coaching structure is not strong enough to really challenge the hierarchy, to really put them under pressure, to almost out them in public and say, this lot need to change if we're going to be given half a chance.
The focus on today's game, you can't really blame Solskjaer, can you?
No, I've always said about that. It's not all Solskjaer's fault, but he's a huge part of the problem because he's out his depth. He's out his depth. Was it 6 months ago I said this? I can't remember. What other point does a manager from Mulder come in and manage Man United? Yeah. Apart from the fact he's a former Man United player, what's that got to do with anything?
How much does it help things if you sack him tonight and bring in Pochettino tomorrow?
Well, the whole structure needs to change.
Right.
But directors of football, sporting directors, in fact, I'll go as high up, the ownership. The ownership of Manchester United needs to change for that club to go in the right direction. I think that's how rotten it is to the core. Business-wise, it might be.
But they've spent a lot. They spent what, £1 billion?
Well, that's what I'm saying. They've spent it terribly.
But at least the owners are giving you money.
Exactly. And to that point, and that's to your question, Dan, bringing Pochettino in. Pochettino, sitting during his time at Spurs, did all the things that the board would like. In that, he spoke to the party line. He didn't ruffle too many feathers in the manner that Craig suggested, but was still able to get results out of a team. Listen, I know the last 6 months at Spurs wasn't that great, but when you look at the greater body of his work, it was simply fantastic. And now to keep Solskjaer in a job purely because he also toes that party line, but no results, makes absolutely no sense.
Yeah. Frank, isn't it, from the outside, it just seems like a no-brainer. Get rid of Ole tonight, bring in Poch tomorrow, new start, here we go.
Well, it's maybe the time. Yeah, it's maybe the time. I think Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is not, as Craig said, the only one responsible, but we can see that he has a hard time to change the things. So, yeah, if you bring Pochettino and you are ready to change the structure of the team, of the club, maybe you can achieve something. But you have to do so because otherwise it's gonna last, I don't know, another decade with players, average players, that some people that you mentioned. It's not possible for Manchester United to go deeper than they are right now because I never seen Manchester United like that. Never seen Manchester United like that. It must be really, really hard for the fans to go to Old Trafford to watch the game, to watch a team like that, especially when you are like myself, 50, 60, and you saw so many fantastic teams of Manchester United. So yeah, something has to be changed right now to not be too much disappointed and be able to reverse the problem.
Now, another problem that you could have if you're United, if you're Pochettino, do you want this?
Well, and yeah, you don't want this because if you don't have the structure that you would want as a club, and you don't know exactly who's making the decisions and as to what role you play in that decision making, you don't want it. However, if you're Pochettino, you say, and this is alluding to what Shaka was talking about, you say, wait a minute. I was coaching for an owner that was not willing to spend. Here, I have owners that are willing to spend. So if I give it my spin, I give it my touch, and my decisions, and the people making those decisions are in touch with me, and we have a structure together that works, then I can change something here. The other thing that would be appealing to Pochettino is, well, it cannot get any worse.
Right.
So anything that you do from here on out is great for Manchester United. The sad part for Manchester United fans is how quickly it got this bad. How in a span of 3-4 years, it's been negative momentum, it's been a tailspin out of control, and nothing has been able to stop it. And then you think how hard it's going to be to get out of it.
Right.
It's not just one or two players.
Yeah.
It's not one or two things that need to change. As the guys have been mentioning, it's a whole structural change.
And added to that, you're chasing the two best teams in Europe at the moment, in City and Liverpool.
Yeah, so those guys are... See, if I'm Manchester United, I'm not even looking at Manchester City and Liverpool. I am thinking about what can I do to be better tomorrow?
Yeah.
And then the next week, and then the month after that. And then once we find some sort of consistency, then we can start talking about competing consistently with Manchester City and Liverpool. At this point, they're not competitive. That's the truth.
If you're Poch, do you take this?
Take it because it's Man United.
That's it, isn't it?
And there's hope. But I tell you what, it's almost as important as bringing players in as getting players out. That's how rotten they are.
Yeah.
Not them all. Young Williams, Wan-Bissaka. Talking to Shaq about it, he's got to polish his game up as a youngster going forward, but defensively, he can improve there, but he's very good defensively. Got some youngsters in and around. Wouldn't blame them at all. Some of the charlatans that have been around now for a little while, and people know who they are, they've got to get these guys out. They've got to get the deadwood out, and unfortunately, it doesn't matter who's managing the club. Then unless that changes, they're not going to be able to try and patch up the difference between the two clubs that you mentioned in England, anyway. And it's just become a giant bore now, watching and talking about them, because probably since his good run with as interim manager finished, it's been a slippery slope for all these months, and there's been the odd good performance, like City away. There's been the odd good performance that sort of gets some of the fans who probably don't know much better and they're holding on to it. Sort of keeps them hanging in for a little bit, but really and truly, it's pretty rotten to the core.
Just to end this, I know you don't want to talk about City, Shaq, but let's just take a moment to reflect on them, because it took two to tango today. As bad, obviously, as United were in the first half, City were at their best, and we're also in a situation now where Laporte's coming back. Leroy Sané, who I'd completely forgotten was even at the club still, coming back as well. You think that all the competitions that City are in, there's an argument to say, they could be favourites for all of them, maybe with the exception of the Champions League.
Listen,
the league, they're in the league.
Oh, yeah, the league.
The league. Yeah, listen, what Pep Guardiola...
You said this wasn't over.
Let Shaq speak.
No, I'm happy to have you all just spar it out. Listen, Pep Guardiola has been making changes certainly with his formation. I spoke about leaving his strikers out and how he's tinkering with formations and who he gets the bomb on. And he's just swamping teams with what he's doing. And credit to him as he tries to figure out exactly what he needs to do to win the Champions League and in going forward, because that is, I still think, is City's holy grail.
ESPN FC, of course, is the real holy grail, and it's available to you every single day. What a moment. And it's pretty easy to find as well. We'll be back for more of this tomorrow.